The thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamitte, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. That's right. It is Monday, the most important day of the week, December 9th, you guys. And today is a lutefisk day. Any of you know what that is?
Yes, that is a cod that's like fermented or dried and kept for a long time.
Interesting. And we're still waiting on Jenny Beth, huh? I'm gonna have to text her. It's also Christmas card day, Jesse. Have you run any Christmas cards yet?
No, my grandma's sad.
Oh man. We also have a special guest joining us today. We have Russell from the Texas hemp grower, and we have Jordan from Key Investment Partners out in Colorado. So welcome both of you guys as well. And it's also National Pastry Day today, Jesse.
Oh, that's my favorite. I'm into that.
And I feel like this is a sad day today because it's also Weary Willy Day, whatever that's supposed to mean. My mind just goes all kinds of places. What do you think, Jesse?
Weary Willy. All I can think of is Wet Willy, and that someone's tired of doing Wet Willies. Willy's tired.
I just think it's like someone that needs like some blue chews or something.
There you go. Willy needs blue chews.
Yeah, Willy needs blue chews. Yeah, exactly. He's weary.
So it's actually National Blue Chew Day.
It very well could possibly be National Blue Chew Day. That is totally possible. You have any thoughts on this, Russell or Jordan? National Blue Chew Day?
No thoughts at all, actually.
All right.
None at all.
Dave, I'm rarely stumped, but you guys got me.
All right, fair enough. Look at that. Thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast, and please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above and down below to see exactly where we live on the internet, and we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, X, and on our very own website at www.highat9news.com. So welcome to everyone joining us from all of those platforms today. We are still waiting on Jenny Beth Dills. I'm not sure where the hell this girl's at. I'm going to have to text her in a second, but I'm going to kick it off today because the dope dad himself, Mr. Rico Lamitte, could not join us today. He had to take little baby Zozo into the dentist. They had a dentist appointment today. So I have a fascinating story for you guys because these guys, man, it seems like they're never going to learn, Jesse. Because the House Dems, they take another shot at legalizing marijuana, you guys. That's right. Democrats are taking another swing at legalizing marijuana in Pennsylvania. That's right, the Keystone State. House Representative Dan Frankel, a Democrat from Allegheny, and Rick Kawasaki, Democrat from Philadelphia, are circulating a co-sponsorship memorandum for legislation they are drafting. It's the latest in a string of legislation over the past few years aiming to legalize marijuana. Frankel and Kurosaki want to expunge convictions for those affected by the state's drug laws, reinvest money into communities they say have been disproportionately harmed by the war on drugs, limit marijuana with excessive THC levels, as well as prohibit predatory marketing and packaging and prevent accidental use by children, and provide business opportunities in the cannabis industry in Pennsylvania. How are you going to be providing cannabis industry opportunities if you're talking about already eliminating a majority of the products that people want to buy? But nonetheless, Kurosaki, who led the House Health Subcommittee on Healthcare, chaired 5 hearings to examine the successes and failures of cannabis programs in other states in the previous legislative session. In a quote, "We've heard from public health experts, we've heard from criminal justice and social equity advocates, and we've learned directly from states across the country how to get this done safely and efficiently, gathering hundreds of millions of dollars in public revenue," said Kurosaki. That he also says it's time to move forward in Pennsylvania before we fall further behind. Well, you definitely are living in the past. I mean, or, you know what I'm saying? But nonetheless, 24 other states, including nearly every state that shares a border with Pennsylvania, have already legalized adult use marijuana. And polls show that cannabis decriminalization is popular among Pennsylvanians across all political parties. Frankel, who is a majority chair of the House Health Committee, said that the criminalization of cannabis has been disastrous for the Commonwealth, particularly within communities of color. In a quote, he says, "We have a moral obligation to not only legalize, but also to work to repair the damage caused by decades of marijuana arrests," Frankel said, noting that many states' newly legal markets have struggled due to poor regulation and legal attacks from our out-of-state cannabis corporations. "Our bill will deliver a market that protects the public health, benefits our taxpayers, and uplifts those communities that were disproportionately harmed by prohibition policies." Parts of the bill are similar to what Governor Josh Shapiro included in his executive budget proposal in July, though the marijuana legalization language did not garner legislative approval. As a new revenue stream, Shapiro wants to legalize adult use marijuana, following the example of neighbors in like Ohio, New Jersey, and New York. Shapiro's administration estimates that the industry would eventually yield $250 million in additional annual revenue, and he also called for expunging records of those incarcerated for marijuana and using $5 million for restorative justice. Oh boy, sounds like there's going to be like $5 million laundered dollars going to who knows where, but I can't wait to hear what you guys all have to say about this.
I would just say, let's all remember that regulation and legalization are not the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, exactly, bro. Exactly.
I mean, that's what they're about to do. That's what they're trying, state by state. That's what keeps happening. The trick of regulation gets put on this industry, and we overregulate it rather than free it up to be actually legal.
There's definitely a lot of tricks going on in this.
Every time.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about this, Jordan? Are you going to want to jump into the Pennsylvania market if this bill is able to go through? Are you going to throw some money at it?
Yeah, you know, the Pennsylvania market is one that we have been very interested in for quite some time. We have a little bit of existing exposure currently in the portfolio and are actually actively exploring a live opportunity in Pennsylvania. You know, a lot to like about that market in terms of being earlier on that adoption curve of legalization from medical to rec. You know, as you rightly mentioned, they're still medical today. I think they're the 5th or 6th largest population in the country. So after Florida, it's really the biggest prize, if you will, left on the map. You know, you mentioned the fact that all the states around them have at this point legalized adult use as well. So I think Shapiro's seeing the writing on the wall, right? Why are we having all these tax revenues flow out of the state to all these other markets like Ohio, New Jersey, New York that are all popping off when we could keep that revenue here? So I think, you know, we're very bullish on regulatory reform happening. You know, I think that there is going to be incentive from the Republicans in the Pennsylvania Senate to slow things down, in particular with potential of Shapiro running for president in the next election cycle. I think that there is probably desire from them to
hold on a second.
Prevent a big win there.
You think Shapiro is going to run for president?
I mean, I don't know for sure, but I think that it's a very real possibility.
I think that's fair as a possibility. I mean, the Democrats have absolutely zero talent left. And Shapiro should have been the vice presidential nominee, and that could have helped push Kamala over the edge. That's for sure. But instead, she rolled off a different ledge.
Exactly. Yeah. So we'll see. And my understanding, and correct me if this is wrong, but I believe that Pennsylvania has a split Congress currently.
Split Congress, meaning they have Republicans and Democrats in Congress?
Yeah, but in that each of the chambers is controlled by a different party.
Oh, okay. I got you. So you're saying the House is controlled by the Democrats and the Senate is controlled by Republicans?
Yeah,
that could be very possible. Yeah. That could be very possible. Yeah. The Commonwealth is kind of like that.
I think that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's why I'd say if it doesn't happen, that's probably the main reason why it wouldn't. But overall, I think that there's a very good chance that Pennsylvania gets something done in the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Russell, you have any thoughts on Pennsylvania, on all this green corn that all the Amish grow?
Well, I was just curious, for that market, because here in Texas, we only have hemp. And I was wondering, do they have a hemp program in place? Do they have THCA flower? Or is there a recreational hemp market there with Pennsylvania? Because I'm just unfamiliar with it.
Well, I'm sure that they do. I mean, that pretty much every state has a market for it until they enact a ban, and then they have an even bigger market for it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just was wondering how these, how these laws are, how their future legislation would affect their current, hemp policies.
Well,
that they have
well, this legislation doesn't mention anything hemp, and I haven't seen Pennsylvania coming out with any type of ban on hemp. Like we have another story later that I'm going to cover at the end of the day with another state that's trying to enact a hemp ban and whatnot. But to me, it's just stupid. It's just like in this legislation that they're proposing, they're talking about eliminating a high potency cannabis. Now, to me, that's just stupid. Like all you're doing, like people are still going to want to go and buy this shit anyway, and so all you're doing is creating a new illicit market for that to thrive and stopping actual legitimate tax revenue and commerce happening within your state.
Yeah. I mean, that's what Texas is kind of dealing with that over here too, with whatever happens, and you'll get to that story with us a little later. But yeah, I mean, it's we've got a, and there's talk of the alcohol markets that are, the big influence on lobby efforts here in Texas. And I'm sure this is going on in other states. But we just got to get sensible regulation in place is the main goal here, and get the states on board, or maybe the federal government needs to make a big move in a big way, and then all the states will follow, like the Farm Bill. So we'll see what kind of happens with the Farm Bill, and we're going to see, what maybe the federal legislation movement happens under the next 4 years of Trump.
We're not going to see anything change with the Farm Bill. They've already punted that thing down the road, and I don't see Trump changing anything in the Farm Bill. I mean, after all, he signed it the first time.
Next year?
No, they don't have to do anything. They
I thought it sunsets in 2025.
No,
and they absolutely have to do something.
They don't have to necessarily do anything. They can just pass another extension of what they've already passed. Like, that's all that they technically have to do. What they just did this time is they don't have to go and do anything.
I was under the impression that it actually sunsets and they do have to do something by the end of 2025.
That's why God made copy paste, Jesse.
Well, that's still something, right? They still have to run it through and approve it.
I see what you're saying is like they have to go. I don't think they necessarily have to do all that. I mean, they're the legislature. They just say, hey, you know what? We want to continue this. Like, because if that was the case, they would
pull a vote. Is my point.
Because
they would have to.
Well, a lot of bills don't all of a sudden just sunset after some sort of period time. You know what I mean, Jess?
I thought that was written into the bill. I could be wrong, but that's what I thought that was.
It could be. I don't want to claim to be a farm bill expert, but I do know that Trump ain't going to change that shit. Trump ain't changing that shit. There's a lot of speculation from a lot of people that say that he is and whatnot, but I'm not buying it. I feel like if he intended on changing it, he would have. First of all, he would have already came out and said something about it, and secondly, why is he going to want to change policies that he actually created under his first term?
Well, I think the argument would be that when they created the policy back in it was 2018 when that farm bill passed, that it just kind of created this loophole for all these intoxicating hemp derivatives that no one was really expecting.
See, you call it a loophole, and I just call it innovation.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think it's innovation as well, and lawmakers are calling it a loophole, but it's absolutely innovation of the plant, Jason, and so credit the industry for just being innovative and following the rules at the same time.
Very, very much so. Very much so. You have anything else you want to say on this, Jesse, before we move on?
Yeah, I just think that the farm bill seems actually closer to the truth, like you were just saying, of what the plant is. It should be less regulated. It should be treated like a commodity. It should be treated like a tomato that you can grow at your house, and that whether you juice it raw, which is non-intoxicating, or you choose to cook it or smoke it or vape it, that's up to you in your home. And that shouldn't be regulated. That's between you and God.
Stink Jr. says gray area is a better term. Whatever. Everyone can have their whatevers. But he also says loophole is insane. Loophole would be purchasing an unlicensed designer drug legally. And on that, we're going to roll into a commercial, and we're going to be right back.
I just ordered the summertime strawberry salad when added steak on top here at Anna's. Make sure you do the same thing too next time you're in downtown Long Beach. Come on down and check out Anna's joint on the 400 block of Pine Street. They have amazing selection of beers, foods, and when you come down here to Anna's, you can even challenge me to a game of shuffleboard if you want to lose. Get that? So, next time you're in downtown Long Beach on Pine Avenue, make sure you stop by Anna's Joint on the 400 block. Not only do they have Anna's Joint, this restaurant and bar, but they also have the amazing deli next door, and then next door to that they have a very exotic flower shop. You may want to stop by and say hi.
And we are back. Oh, man. Welcome back, you guys. We are going to roll right into Mr. Jesse Barney. He's the creator of Jesse Barney Design Co. He does graphics, engineering, all of those fun stuff. And he was one of our original creators with High at 9 News and High at 9 News infancy. And so we are here to welcome him back to working with us. And so glad to have you back, Jesse. That's right. It is none other than the real Jesse Barney.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. All right. My story is pretty fun. It's out of Rolling Stone this morning. It is, the weed industry isn't feeling too anxious about Trump 2.0. Marijuana entrepreneurs and advocates may not like Trump, but many are cautiously optimistic and see opportunity in the incoming administration. This is written by Mary Jane Gibson. This year's presidential election was a historic one for weed, with both major presidential candidates endorsing marijuana legalization for the first time ever. Kamala Harris said that she would legalize adult use cannabis at the federal level. At the same time, Donald Trump announced that he was backing Florida's Amendment 3, which would have legalized recreational weed in the state. Despite majority support, the measure did not receive the required 60% voting threshold in the November election. At this stage, federal legalization seems all but inevitable. Last May, President Biden directed the Department of Justice to reclassify marijuana from a Schedule I to a Schedule III drug, a move that would pave the way for legal medical use under federal law. The reclassification wouldn't federally legalize recreational marijuana, but it would remove current barriers to medical research and could affect how some licensed cannabis businesses are taxed. Federal cannabis policy has stagnated for decades. No matter what politicians have said about their evolving stances on legal weed, cannabis prohibition has been cemented in place since the 1970s, when Richard Nixon administration designated marijuana alongside heroin and LSD as a drug with no accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse, despite Nixon's private admission to aides and advisors that he knew it wasn't particularly dangerous. And I find it interesting they omitted the Schaefer Commission from this. He also had the Schaefer Commission say that it wasn't dangerous at all. So nearly 4 decades after Nixon launched the war on drugs, Barack Obama said during his first presidential campaign that medical marijuana was an issue best left to state and local governments. In 2013, a move that activists hailed as a step towards ending prohibition, his Department of Justice issued the Cole Memorandum, which stated that federal laws would no longer be enforced at the state level when it came to marijuana. When Trump won the 2016 presidential election, Obama told Rolling Stone in an exit interview that he thought marijuana use should be treated as a public health issue rather than a criminal one, saying, "If you survey the American people, including Trump voters, they are in favor in large numbers of decriminalizing marijuana." When Trump took office the first time, the legal cannabis industry was flourishing. California, Maine, Massachusetts, and Nevada had all voted to legalize adult-use marijuana the day he was elected, joining Colorado, Washington, Oregon, and they forgot Montana, in the so-called Green Rush. Trump had claimed during his campaign that he wouldn't interfere with state-level marijuana policy. But his then drug warrior attorney, everyone's favorite, General Jeff Sessions, rescinded the Cole memo in 2018. Despite stoking the fears of cannabis advocates and industry folks, however, the policy shift didn't impede state-level marijuana reform. Today, 3/4 of Americans live in a state where marijuana is legal for recreational or medical use. While Trump has signaled that he could be open to federal cannabis reform in his second crack at the presidency, Democratic lawmakers aren't taking him at his word. A coalition led by Senators Elizabeth Warren and Ron Wyden, along with Representatives Barbara Lee and Earl Blumenauer and Ilhan Omar, drafted a letter in November asking Biden to finalize his plans to limit marijuana prosecutions at the federal level before he leaves the Oval Office. Trump's threat of mass deportations could also threaten undocumented agricultural workers who travel to the United States to cultivate, harvest, trim cannabis crops. What will Trump's policies ultimately look like when it comes to legal weed? It's hard to tell what kind of alliances he's building as he taps convicted criminals and other unqualified candidates for key positions. His first pick for Attorney General, Matt Gaetz, was pro-legalization. Cannabis advocates were delighted. But after Gaetz flamed out amid claims of sexual misconduct, Trump nominated Florida's former Attorney General Pam Bondi, who opposed the state's efforts to legalize medical marijuana. Trump's nominee to head up the Department of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., is an anti-vaxxer and conspiracy theorist who has threatened to fire Food and Drug Administration employees for suppression of substances, including raw milk and ivermectin, but he's also pro-cannabis and psychedelics. Chad Chronister, a Florida county sheriff who was in favor of legalizing recreational cannabis, was Trump's choice to head up the Drug Enforcement Administration, but the president-elect yanked the appointment after Chronister was also revealed to have arrested a Florida pastor for hosting church services during the COVID-19 pandemic. And then there's Marty Makary, a surgeon and medical commentator who has suggested that cannabis use can be linked to cardiovascular and mental health issues. Trump nominated Makary to head up the FDA in a post that would oversee federal cannabis policy. Trying to track all of Trump's nominees and their varying stances on legalization will give you whiplash. The unpredictability of the incoming Trump administration was a hot topic last week in Las Vegas at MJ BizCon, a trade show that bills itself as the largest B2B cannabis event in the world. Tens of thousands of marijuana entrepreneurs and advocates gathered to wheel, deal, and discuss what the future may hold. Surprisingly, the overall mood at the event was optimistic, even as the industry braces for massive shifts, with hearings to move marijuana to Schedule III slated to begin the day after Trump's inauguration. cultivator Ted Liddy made the leap from legacy market to the regulated market in California when California legalized recreational weed. His company, Alien Labs, is now licensed to operate in 5 states. Despite his general dislike of the GOP and Trump, Liddy thinks things bode well for the industry under the new administration. He said, "I think Democrats would have done better on the social justice side, but the Republicans are probably going to steal this issue and do better from a business perspective than the Democrats would have done." Until now, federal prohibition has squelched any possibility of interstate commerce since crossing state lines with cannabis violates federal law. While that's been frustrating for operators with single state licenses, it's also protected them from being squeezed out by multi-state operations. Liddy has mixed feelings about the market opening up nationally, but he thinks that the interstate commerce could actually help small businesses survive. If consumers in Florida could order craft cannabis from a highly regarded grower in Oregon or California, Liddy says, it would make a much better marketplace, in my opinion. A little sip of coffee there. Liddy's cautious hope for disruption of the status quo was echoed by others at the event. Jordan Tritt, CEO and co-founder of advisory firm The Panther Group, says investors are feeling optimistic about Trump's nomination of RFK Jr. as the head of HHS. RFK Jr. is the biggest positive opportunity in the administration that I see playing out for the cannabis space, Tritt says. He's pretty favorable on psychedelics and cannabis. I expect a move away from pharmaceuticals that will invite new strategic investors. During his run for the Republican presidential nomination, RFK Jr. claimed that, if elected, he would legalize cannabis and use the tax revenue to create wellness farms where people with addiction to psychiatric drugs would be repaired. Could he potentially merge the legal American weed industry with the global wellness market, which reportedly raked in $6 trillion worldwide in 2023? The idea seems appealing to venture capitalists. Other industry veterans were circumspect when asked about Trump and how he could affect business. Crystal Milliken is Senior Vice President of Retail and Marketing for Cookies. Cookies execs aren't trying to predict what the administration will do, Milliken says. We're cautiously optimistic about Trump's support for safe banking for cannabis companies. She's reserved judgment on Pam Bondi and her anti-marijuana record. As for Trump's other candidates, Milliken says, I don't think the administration has signaled that cannabis reform is at the top of their list, so we will see. Vince Ning, founder and CEO of the cannabis wholesale platform Nabis, is waiting to see if Trump's appointees will set a domino effect into motion by carrying out his vow to dismantle federal bureaucracy. The HHS produces all the health studies and reports from the organizations like the National Institute of Health, Ning says. HHS is going to be one of the first places where the government is going to cut costs, and the Drug Enforcement Agency reports to the Attorney General, so whoever gets appointed as AG will have a large influence on the DEA. That doesn't mean that Ning is necessarily pessimistic about the upcoming administration. I think it's more status quo than anything else. He says Republicans are all about small government and states' rights. That's the default way in which cannabis has legalized. Some marijuana activists also anticipate that things could change for the better under Trump, even if it means chaos. Danny Danko, his last name, Vinkovetsky, the former cultivation editor, that's why he's Danny Danko, because we can't say his last name. The former cultivation editor for High Times points out that federal law hasn't changed under any of the presidential administration since he started out as a grower in the 90s. He says moving marijuana to Schedule III could actually be a step in the wrong direction if it ends up giving control of legal cannabis to the pharmaceutical industry. But he says that even if the Trump administration is disruptive, it might move things forward in a way by breaking what exists. Cannabis PR, media, and drug policy expert Ricardo Baca agrees that a shakeup is desperately needed. The federal government has always been sitting on its hands when it comes to drug policy reform, Baca says. We could see significant change with a loose cannon stepping into the Oval Office. I don't support Trump, I think he'll be bad for the country, but the snail-paced progress needs to be disrupted. I wouldn't be surprised if he did something quote-unquote nuts in the DC terms, like federally legalizing cannabis. The consensus on what federal law will look like under Trump 2.0 seems to be that there is no consensus other than that change is imminent. Overall, the industry outlook for legal weed seems bright. Could Trump and his cabinet of diehard MAGA loyalists flip the script on over 80 years of prohibition? We'll have to spark it up. Sit back and wait to see. This is Jesse Barney, and I am really excited to hear you guys talk about what you think is going to happen over the next 4 years and even in the next one with this new administration.
Man. First of all, Jesse, I cannot believe that Mary Jane Gibson, you said wrote this piece, first of all, right?
That's what it said. Okay,
well, I'm impressed with her because she is a big Trump hater. And so I was, that's interesting that she did this piece. I think it's even more interesting that Rolling Stone chose to publish it, because we know Rolling Stone is a super woke publication too. But this, I mean, I think
that's what I liked about this. It felt really balanced. Like, yeah, at least there was a little bit of like, hey, let's check it out and see, and some open-mindedness, which I really appreciate.
I totally, that's exactly what I was going into, Jesse. Exactly that man, this maybe the TDS is starting to wear off of these liberals. It's very possible.
Hey,
come on, Jason. It's not your birthday yet.
I mean, she did have to throw in, like, there were a few things where she threw in some terms and some phrases, but she couldn't help herself. But overall, the article is, I think, balanced and represents what I have seen from the industry is that there is mixed feelings. I mean, even if you're a conservative, I'm a little bit. I have some trepidation about this. Because there's so many promises made. RFK Jr. stands for so much, and on the psychedelics and weed front, he is kind of one of our guys. Whether you're on the left or the right, he's just been one of our guys. Yep. So there's hope there, but if they fuck it up,
man, you know what? Even if they fuck it up, they're not gonna like mess it up more than it's already been messed up. But shout out to the Suitors with a big old super chat. It says, if JB makes drug czar, will he still be able to maintain his crown of the highest Republican? And yes, that will, because I own the name on the internet, so therefore it can never go away. And if you own something on the internet, you know it's real.
Yeah, if it's on the internet, it's definitely true. I mean, listen, RFK's taking my fucking Diet Coke. I'm going to say it once again because I continue to feel this way, but cannabis is not a fucking important topic to any of the administrations that we've had previously. I don't see this changing now. Like, we need to realize very quickly that, like, they bring it up when somebody needs to get the black vote. And that's what the fuck keeps happening. You saw fucking the Harris campaign do it. They're not going to change it. If we push through Schedule 3, then we're sure as shit not going to fix anything anytime soon. We're going to have there to be like, well, we addressed it, so fuck you.
Fair enough. I mean, technically, as far as I'm concerned, cannabis was already legalized under the Farm Bill, regardless of what you want to call it, a loophole or whatever. Because I think everything is all THCA until you burn it, and I'll take that defense to court on someone. You know what I'm saying? What do you think about this, Russ? Being out there in Texas.
Yeah, well, I'm a little optimistic more. I think that the glass is half full when it comes to this Trump administration, because I just think the business owner in that guy must see the value in the economics that is at play here for not just for every state, but for the whole economy. Everyone's concerned about recession, and I think if we can keep hemp legal or regulate cannabis nationally, federally, just the good for the economy alone is a move that I think is as to the article that you were reading there, Jesse. I think that was it's no one knows what Trump's going to do, and I think that's an unknown thing, and I feel like the glass is half full, because I just think that perhaps the business guy in him will try to help the economy in a way. And so I think there may be motivation politically for him from the business aspect of of legalizing or federally making cannabis legal.
I mean, even if they just remove Operation Choke Point, I mean, that's going to be a big help for the industry overall from all the debanking that we have all experienced. I mean, what do you think? Are you guys hopefully optimistic over there at Key Investments, Jordan? Like, are you guys getting ready? You guys seeing from the investor side that, because cannabis it's been a drought for people trying to raise money in cannabis and whatnot. And personally, I don't think there's been a lot of good deals in cannabis for people to throw their cash flow at it, even in the second place. But what are you guys thinking with this, with what Trump is going to do or could possibly do?
Yeah, no, great question. I mean, you nailed it. The last few years, really since the beginning of 2022, have just been a total desert in terms of raising new capital for the cannabis space. And you've seen the public stocks all lose, 85-90% of their value since that time. I think that the Democrats, frankly, just squandered a big opportunity for a win, right? They had the support of the people. They said that they were going to at least reschedule it, if not legalize it. And then Biden sat on his hands for, 3 years effectively. I do think that Trump is going to continue with the rescheduling process. I mean, the tweet he sent out a few months ago in support of rescheduling, in support of Florida adult use passing, and in support of safe banking. I mean, I don't think he sends that out if he doesn't sincerely mean it, right? There's no positive to him to send that out and then retract those statements. So I am optimistic about rescheduling. I think that will be a huge win for the industry if and when that happens, because it gets rid of the 280E tax issue that has just been completely draining a lot of these cannabis operators' balance sheets. Obviously, we saw the public sell off quite a bit post-election, and I think that was a combination of obviously Florida adult use not passing, which frankly I think that just was mainly because it was a 60% threshold.
No, it was because it was a bad bill. It's a bad bill, Jordan. They didn't have any activist support because there was no home grow provision, and it was just basically a big corporate takeover of these MSOs taking over the whole Florida marketplace, and that's why people didn't support it.
Sure. Fair enough. I mean, that could be
the fear mongering, Jason.
It's true.
Yeah. But nonetheless, the point is that the public's obviously sold off after that, and I think they also kind of got reacted that Republicans are bad for cannabis when we've seen that frankly the Democrats haven't really done anything either. So I'd say generally optimistic about Trump and his administration. I mean, we talked about RFK, obviously, Vivek, Elon Musk, Tulsi Gabbard have all come out obviously in support of cannabis. Matt Gaetz would have been better than Pam Bondi, at least on this issue going in, but I'll defer judgment on what she's going to do. So I'm overall cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, we're probably going to have Matt Gaetz as a special counsel, so he'll still be in that DOJ office and able to steer, and offer his thoughts on things and whatnot.
I think that's the most important point, is that the Democrats missed this opportunity, and this is an easy win for Republicans to just ram it through and get it done really fast and move on and win a ton of people's love right away. So I think it's an easy win. I think that's the reason to be hopeful that something could happen quick.
Fair.
Yeah, the culture is ready for this as well, Jason. I think people are, more accepting of cannabis than they've ever been, in the last 30 years. And I think it would be a win for the Republicans to jump on this. And so that's why I feel, that the glass is half full.
Well, I like glass half full. Jenny, do you want to do your story next, or do you want me to do my second story?
I can go.
You ready to go? All right. All right. Well, coming up next, that's right. It is none other than Miss Jenny Beth Dills, America's sweetheart. She's the founder of Kind Cannabis and of Justice Served, a 501c3 that can help you get your life back on track if you have been unjustly criminalized over this cannabis plant and not receiving a pardon from Biden. But nonetheless, it is none other than Miss Jenny Beth Dills.
I can help you receive a pardon from Biden too, because he seems really focused on hemp pardons. Let's see if he remembers anyone else, Jason. But we can talk about Ohio again. Ohio's recreational cannabis program, launched just over a year ago, could face major changes in 2025. Despite the program being approved by voters and operating for only 4 months, lawmakers are looking to address what they see as flaws in the current system. Outgoing Senate President Matt Huffman who is poised to take on a leadership role as House Speaker next year, is leading the charge for reform. Huffman has been a vocal critic of aspects of the voter-approved law. One of his key concerns is the home cultivation allowance, which currently permits households with 2 or more adults to grow up to 12 cannabis plants. Huffman has argued that this quantity is excessive and could enable illegal resale. He must not have heard that we had a 99 plant count in Colorado. He supports slashing the limit to 6 plants, saying the only reason that someone would grow that much is to resell it. That's not true. This change is just one piece of border overhaul introduced by Huffman and 28 other senators last year. The proposed bill also included measures to limit product potency, increase sales tax on cannabis, and reallocate tax revenues. While the bill has stalled since then, Huffman insists it still serves as a strong framework for improving the program. Another contentious issue is how marijuana laws interact with hemp regulations. Huffman believes marijuana and hemp provisions should be addressed together in a single bill, a move that previously faced pushback from House lawmakers. During the current lame duck session, lawmakers are debating a separate bill that would ban the sale of Delta-8 THC and other hemp-derived products, imposing criminal penalties on violators. The cannabis industry has largely supported stricter oversight of unregulated hemp products, but opposes extending similar mandates to its already regulated market. Huffman's legislative agenda will likely have significant influence as he transitions into the House top leadership role. Term limited in the Senate, he won a House seat in November and was selected as Speaker by caucus shortly afterwards. Meanwhile, Senator Rob McCauley, Huffman's successor as Senate President, also supports the 2023 reform framework, signaling broad Republican backing for these changes. With Ohio's recreational cannabis market still in its early stages, the decisions made in 2025 could have a lasting impact on the state's approach to legalization, regulation, and enforcement. Lawmakers and stakeholders will be watching closely as the legislative session begins next year. So there's a decent amount to unpack here. Shout out to Ohio for saying, hey, this doesn't work, but maybe they should start addressing things like we don't want to buy a 10th, we want to buy a fucking 8th. Mm-hmm. Or there are reasons, especially if you have a chronically ill family member, that you need 12 plants. You need enough to extract. You need this, you need that. 12 plants is not excessive. We paid quite a large amount to have a very large extended plant count in Colorado. Yes, we did that for a reason, and it wasn't always for caregivers, right? But 12 plants is not excessive. I think that there's a big gap here in Ohio between the lawmakers and their functional understanding of what this industry is and what patients' needs are. So I'll throw it back to you guys. I'm sure I'll have some more to put in there as we go on, but I would love to hear what everybody else thinks.
Ohio. And there was no mention of Nick Lachey in this article, huh, Jenny Beth?
I mean, listen, it's his fault. We know it's his fault.
We all know it's Nick Lachey's fault. He's the whole
Bastard.
reason for all of this going on in Ohio. I mean, I guess it is good that they are addressing this. I agree with you on that, Jenny Beth. But there's so many problems with Ohio's market, and especially you brought up the fact that they sell these tents. And we covered a story last week where consumers are feeling like they are getting shafted by purchasing tents when they could just be driving to Michigan and paying cheaper prices and getting full ACE as opposed to tents. It's almost
is what
It's almost
That's
like
what the story was.
Yeah, it's almost like all of a sudden the state of Ohio is basically pinching your bag before they sell it to you.
Jason, do you think they're saying that these big ball trappers that are growing 12 plants a fucking household didn't have enough to sustain people, so they're driving to Michigan?
Big plants. The bigger the plants, the bigger the harvest. Yeah, big plants.
Huge plants.
Huge. Yes.
Huge.
I mean, Jordan. Ohio is a pretty investor friendly market, wouldn't you say? Do you guys have any deployments out there in the Ohio market?
We do, yes. We're invested in PharmaCann, who's got a large footprint in Ohio. Mm-hmm. I'm actually from Cincinnati originally, and so we're very bullish on the Ohio market. I was just out doing an asset tour of another operator we're looking to partner with. And yeah, I think all the issues you highlighted there, Jenny, are spot on, right? We've got super cheap priced flower in Michigan in particular that you have to compete with, right? So like, for example, some of the dispensaries I checked out, one was in Cincinnati, one was, an hour and a half north of Cincinnati, still at least an hour and a half from Michigan, but the pricing had to be 40% cheaper than other dispensary just to compete with Michigan, right? The tenths is an issue, the fact that you can't sell pre-rolls or grinders or, lighters, like they definitely need to fix some of that stuff up to get it up and running effectively. But nonetheless, in the meantime, does seem like adult use is really starting to make a real impact. And I think a lot of stores there are probably 2xing the revenues they were doing before it.
That's a great point right there. That is a great point. And what do you think about this, Jess? Ohio, bro. Any thoughts on this?
I'm super lost on the fact that we crossed 5,000 subscribers this morning.
I was going to mention that. I was going to mention that in the promo, Jess. Yes. Thank you to everyone subscribing.
I was not paying attention to anything. I was we got over 5,000. I was crawling through stuff.
Not to mention, we got over 125 people watching right now on this live, just on YouTube and on X. We got a decent 37 people on our X, and so make sure that you are following us on X, High at 9 News, especially if you have a blue check mark next to your account, because we're trying to get to 500 followers on X. So please help us out with this.
Mm-hmm. If we get to 10,000 subscribers, I'll be on time every day, and Jason won't have to bitch at me anymore.
Really? You guys heard that? We're Adam, make sure you make a note of this, okay? Because all we need is for all of our subscribers, all 5,000 plus of you, to just share this with one friend, and make them subscribe. And then all of a sudden we'll be at 10,000 overnight. If you guys could all do that, we would super appreciate it. Make sure that you share the show and whatnot. Russell, you have any thoughts on this before we move on?
Well, I know that I have a client here in that advertises in Texas with us on our podcast and our magazine here in Austin, and he's based in Cleveland, but he produces drink beverages of the Delta 8, Delta 9 variety, and he does this all over the state, provides them all over the Midwest to many clients, and so I know that he's been paying a lot of attention to that. I'm on the hemp side, like a lot of my clients are, so I know that the governor was working on some kind of emergency bill, and so they were all following, legislative movement in the last few weeks. I haven't followed up on what's going on with there. So that hearing about this story here is, just kind of brings that forward for the Delta 8 market. And so if they do decide to legislate with a future bill that regulates both marijuana and hemp at the same time, that's probably a positive move. But it affects me just only because I have a couple of clients in Ohio, and I hear about this from them as a major concern.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Are you bullish on this beverage market? Because I think it's total bullshit.
What do you mean, the THC?
You think this THC beverage market is really going somewhere? These people just hype it up with press release after press release, saying how it's going to be so great and but yet it's still so small percentage of the market share.
Well, it's the smallest sector of the market, so of course it's
teeny tiny baby.
It takes very small changes to grow.
You know what's growing faster than the beverage
gummies? Market?
Parody gummies. You know what else is growing faster? Even that is the senior market purchasing cannabis is even growing faster than the beverage market, and everyone just wants to hype up this beverage market and throw out their press releases and put their seltzers.
Well, the senior market, Jason, started smoking cannabis in the '60s, so it's.
I think that's a little judgmental. They could have started smoking in the '50s. They could have been. They could have been rebel rousers.
That's the baby boomer generation. They're they were the guys. That's my parents' generation.
Mm-hmm.
They're the guys that are doing cannabis, coming back to it now for not so much the recreational side of the plant, but more for medicinal. Heal that knee and work on that tennis elbow or what have you. My parents' generation, like a lot of others, especially here in Texas, are taking advantage of that. And we interview a lot of people on our show that talk about the retailers that we interview. They can't, time and time again, it's grandma and grandpa that's coming in. Of that 50 plus market is 50% of their business for a lot of the retailers that we interview on our podcast. And so I think that the baby boomer generation is coming full circle with cannabis.
Look at that, full circle. I prefer figure eights, but nonetheless, on that, we're going to roll into a commercial and we're going to be right back.
Are you a business that's suffering from the hyperinflation that is plaguing America today? We have the solution for you. That's right, Patriot Business Financing. Head on over to www.patriotbfc.com. Apply for a loan up to $2 million. Any state, any industry, even the cannabis industry, the CBD industry, as well as the industrial hemp fiber industry. Secure up to $2 million today, and make sure that when you apply, you tell you said hi from High at 9.
All right, Jenny, thank God she's with us today, but she's not wasted right now. We are back, and stop whatever you're doing. Make sure that you hit that like button. I know we'll appreciate it, you'll appreciate it, and YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel and share it with a friend if you have not subscribed already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show, you can read directly on our website at www.highat9news.com. And I do want to send a special thank you to all of you subscribers out there on YouTube. We did cross the 5,000 subscriber threshold just this morning prior to the show, and so we want to give major thanks and appreciation to all of you guys. Big round of applause for all of you guys out there. We super appreciate the support, and please help us grow. We, you know what I'm saying? We need to take this bigger. And on that, we're gonna roll into our next commercial.
Are you all ready for America's new #1 D9 gummy line? That's right, we are bringing to you Parody Gummy. These vegan gummies are manufactured in a safe harbor facility, so you know they're gonna be clean and safe, and they're not gonna give you any of the runaround. Coming in, we have 3 amazing flavors for you. We have the Raspberry Riots. Also, we have the Sleepy Joes if you need something to help you sleep at night. And if you're feeling like raging and having a party time, that's right, we have the Pineapple Bad Hombre. If you're feeling like a bad hombre, make sure you head over to www.parodygummy.com and secure your bag today. Yes, and we are back. And coming in, we have a guest joining us today, Mr. Jordan Youkilis. Did I murder that? Because your last name is freaking awesome, bro. All right, Jordan.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yes, he's the founding partner at Key Investment Partners, a cannabis-focused private equity fund based in Denver, Colorado, with $50 million in asset management. And Jordan led the team's investments in Springbig, PharmaCann, Herbal, TRP, and LeafLink. And in his free time, Jordan enjoys skiing, hiking, reading, traveling, and the study of consciousness. So take us out of this world, Mr. Jordan Youkilis from Key Investments joining us today. Thank you so much, Jordan.
Thanks, Jason. Really excited to be here with y'all. Lose ya?
No, you're right here. You're all good. Go for it, baby.
Awesome.
It's all you.
Awesome. Well, yeah. Well, what can I tell you? Just want a little bit of background on who we are at Key Investment Partners.
And no. Just go into your story. You're going to your story.
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Jordan Youkilis. Great to meet everybody here. I've been in the cannabis industry for about 6 years at this point. So I'm a Cincinnati native. I went to Indiana University for undergrad, and then started my career in traditional finance. Started with GE Capital in a variety of roles. Spent the majority of that time in Chicago with their leverage lending group. There, I made the move over to the buy side when I joined a private equity firm called Partners Group. First in their New York office, then in their San Francisco office, and then back in 2016, they decided to open up a new North American headquarters in Denver, Colorado, which is what brought me to the city, where I am still today. While I was working for Partners Group, I met both of my eventual co-founders at Key Investment Partners, Tibby Erdely and Pete Carabas. The three of us were just working on very traditional upper middle market leverage buyout transactions, nothing cannabis related. Like most institutional investors, Partners Group couldn't touch the asset class at all. Naturally, being in Colorado, we saw the massive growth of the cannabis industry all around us. Then late 2017 came across a Business Insider article about how limited venture capital and private equity financing there was for the cannabis industry for all the reasons, everyone's super well familiar. And that really just got our wheels turning. So decided to break off and start Key Investment Partners in mid-2018, and went and raised our first private equity fund in early 2019. We've since raised and deployed that first fund across 15 different investments. We're currently back in the market raising and deploying our second fund. We've got our first 3 deals invested there, as well as our next 3 deals, which we're looking to close as part of our second close. And are really excited about the state of the industry. I think as we touched on earlier in this conversation, the capital markets over the last few years have been very challenging, right? Fundraising has been extremely difficult.
Jordan, you're supposed to be reading the story, bro. The story that I texted you.
Oh, I'm sorry, man.
Yeah. That's
I didn't get that.
No worries, bro. No worries. You were supposed to be reading the story,
let me get
bro.
into that.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. All right, so that's just a little bit about my background. So here is the story that you sent me. So this is about California pot shops, $1.3 billion in back taxes as panic grows over industry-wide solvency. And this is by Lester Black. San Francisco's Vapor Room cannabis dispensary has faced plenty of foes since it opened in 2003. It brawled in federal courtrooms with the IRS and was hit during crackdowns by the U.S. Justice Department. But now that weed is legal, it appears the one thing the storied dispensary can't survive is California's legal weed market. The dispensary is at risk of going out of business because of $250,000 in tax debt it owes to the state of California, according to founder Martin Olive. He blamed the pot shop's tough financial situation on slumping sales caused by street problems in his Soma neighborhood, as well as high cannabis taxes and penalties from the state. We're at a crunch point now where things are looking more dire than they've ever been, Olive wrote in a LinkedIn post last week, where he called for lenders, credit lines, investors, angels, and/or a miracle to get us out of some critical debt. The Vapor Room's problems come as cannabis businesses across the state struggle to stay alive, with thousands of companies going out of business and taxes going unpaid. The industry owes the state nearly $1.3 billion in late taxes and penalties, according to the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration. High cannabis taxes are frequently blamed for making the state's legal pot industry unsustainable, yet some tax rates are set to move even higher. Come July, the state plans to increase cannabis excise tax by 25%, a prospect that is sending panic across the industry, with some warning that it could be the nail in the coffin for many legal weed businesses. Already teetering on the edge, a tax increase is going to kill us, said Jared Kilo, the owner of the Higher Path dispensary in Los Angeles. You're basically charged more than what you owe. Cannabis companies across California have been struggling for years to stay profitable, thanks in part to an extremely difficult business environment. The costs of running a pots company are astronomically high compared with most businesses, with companies facing expensive regulations, banking fees, and security. Just as costs continue to rise, revenues are also taking a hit as wholesale prices for pot plummet and legal cannabis sales decline year over year. Legal cannabis sales in California have been dropping for the past 3 years, and that's particularly true in San Francisco, where per capita cannabis sales have declined over 34% since 2021. Businesses like the Vapor Room are left squeezed in the middle between rising costs and falling revenue, with no profit left over to survive. Olive says he's prioritized paying his employees and his vendors, which has left him unable to fully pay his state tax bill. That bill has grown even larger because California has a particularly punitive tax law for cannabis businesses. Most companies face a 10% penalty if they don't pay their taxes on time, but cannabis businesses face a 50% penalty if they're late. Olive said the principal he owes is roughly $125,000, a fraction of the total $250,000 billed to the state. Olive said this penalty makes it nearly impossible to get out of tax debt. You're basically charged more than what you owe, Olive said. It compounds, which makes it completely overwhelming to catch up. Olive also blamed problems in his shop's Soma neighborhood, which saw decreased foot traffic after tech workers left the downtown core of San Francisco during the pandemic, and an increase in street disorder filled the void. We've been beset by illicit drug sales outside in our neighborhood, Olive said. There's been a real lack of support in the community. I'm sympathetic to what people are going through with addiction, but it's made it very difficult to operate. Growing problem. The Vapor Room is far from the only pot shop in California that owes the state taxes. Cannabis companies owe the state nearly $1.3 billion in unpaid taxes and penalties as of October 31st, according to data shared with SFGate by the Department of Tax and Fee Administration. The agency said a large portion of that total is due to penalties and interest on unpaid taxes. Industry observers have been saying for years that the industry couldn't support California's tax rates, especially after a 2023 law changed how taxes were calculated and collected. One observer told SF Gate at the time that the shift would cause an extinction event, with pot shops unable to pay their taxes and then getting knocked out by the state's mandatory 50% penalty. That extinction event could be unfolding with widespread company failures in recent years, including the largest pot distributor and the largest delivery company in the state, and thousands of pot farms. It's not clear how many pot stores are at risk of closing. The Department of Tax and Fee Administration said it cannot calculate how many cannabis retailers are behind on their taxes because a single taxpayer may have multiple liabilities for one or more periods or for multiple taxes. However, the unpaid tax bills continue to increase. Not including interest and penalties, pot companies owed the state $354 million in taxes on November 18th, which is up from $287 million in back taxes in February of this year. Tax hike coming. Ironically, the tax rates themselves could be partially blamed for the tax man not getting paid. Legal cannabis taxes, which can climb over 40% in some jurisdictions in California, make legal cannabis more expensive than illicit market weed. California's legal market is thriving, and many observers say that's because customers are balking at paying legal prices when they can find cheaper weed outside licensed stores. Kilo, the Los Angeles pot shop owner, said this is particularly true for younger people who will just go to the cheapest price. You have a very nimble demographic in the under 35 demographic that is just one Instagram post away from leaving the legal industry. That problem could get even worse this summer when the state plans to increase the cannabis tax rate from 15% to 19% in July, which will be added to a list of other local and state taxes. Kilo estimated that the increase will push cannabis taxes to over 50% in Los Angeles, where there's an additional 10% sales tax. Kilo said that would be the tipping point that will destroy even more legal businesses. For Olive, it's not clear if he can hold on to his vapor room until the summer. He is organizing an auction to raise funds to keep his shop alive while he negotiates with the state to try to get on a tax payment plan. Oh yeah, I mean it's a major issue in the industry. Like we were talking about earlier, you know, the tax regime is completely unsustainable. We think today the illegal market is probably 4 to 5x what it is the legal market in California, simply because the prices are so much cheaper without all the taxes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, this is rough, and you know the retail side is the part that's the hardest part to navigate with 280E, as far as write-offs and whatnot. You can mitigate a lot of your 280E exposure if you're cultivation or distribution, manufacturing or whatnot, but it is rough on retail, and Vapor Room being a standalone shop, it makes it even harder for them to offset their liabilities with 280E. But I wonder if this is pointing to a bigger problem, because what is the state going to do if people can't pay their taxes? Right. And then the only thing that they have the ability to do is to revoke their licenses. And then all of a sudden there's already a lack of retail establishments throughout California because of the League of Cities and whatnot and their prohibition on retail establishments. And this to me, I think, is probably like the big Achilles heel that is gonna really tackle the cannabis space.
I mean, they have other options, right, Jason? So they have the ability to do till tap, right? So they come in and take every piece of cash, every amount of money that you have on your property, and then charge you for the CHP coming and doing it. They can revoke your seller's permit. There are a lot of things up to it, including taking their
but if they do that,
license.
But if they revoke your seller's permit, that default is basically taking your license, because you fall out of compliance at that point, and therefore. So
the way that typically works is they don't just go straight to taking the seller's permit, right? There are hearings that happen at the CDFA.
That's not what happened to me.
Try to get it. Well, I'm sorry, that's not what happened to you. You should have paid your taxes. But
not really how it works. What
could have happened? I'm quite cool, because I've gotten clients through this situation before, right? So we've had multiple meetings with the CDTFA. They don't give a shit necessarily that they get all their money at once. They want their fucking money, and they want to know that you intend to pay them their money, right? So if they're like, hey, jackass, I'm going to smack you on the ass in 3 weeks. I'm going to smack you on the ass in 3 weeks. Don't be surprised if I come up to you, Jason, in 3 weeks and I smack you on your ass.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
I feel you.
That happen.
I feel you. I mean, I've experienced a till tap. I mean, we even saw the Jungle Boys experience a till tap, and they tried to promote it as the fact that they were getting raided on social media. When that wasn't the case, it was just simply a till tap.
Oh, they were shooketh down for the money that they owedeth.
Yep, exactly.
My bad, dog. And yeah, our taxes are way too fucking high, and throw on that little 2% on gross that you get in LA County too. So I mean, whatever. But at the end of the day, y'all. Call somebody who knows how to make a fucking payment plan with these people.
But here's the thing, though, is even if you make a payment plan, it doesn't mean necessarily that you're going to have the money to stay in good standing on that payment plan when because every sale that you make, you incur more tax liability. Jenny
and
Beth.
You know what I'm about to say, right, Jason?
What are you going to say, Jenny Beth? Something good?
Every sale you fucking make comes with a receipt that shows where the taxes were charged to the fucking customer. It's your job to remit those to the state.
I know. It's just
so
expensive.
cry me a tax fucking river.
It's expensive to do business in California. It is very, very expensive.
It's the price of having 28 years of regulation in the state of California. It's just been, operators are being really, it's expensively taxed there. And
28 years of regulation. We've only had regulation since 2018.
Well, but you guys have had cannabis since
we had a free and open market.
Okay, so
prior to that,
I would agree with Jason. I wouldn't say that we necessarily had 28 years of regulation. We definitely had. That's why I called 215 the permission slip, and 64 was get your ass on the porch by 6 p.m. Don't do this, don't do that. The actual regulation, right? So like the taxes and the medical side when people were caregivers and having these medical shops where they had miles of cash around them rapping and shit was definitely not regulated.
Yeah, taxes didn't even start in California till 2007, when the State Board of Equalization, which is now known as the CDFTA, said that you are responsible for your paying sales tax on cannabis, and they also double backed on that, and they said that if you have been open prior to that, you are also responsible for your back taxes from the date of inception. So they made it retroactive from your date of inception, which caused a lot of pre-existing dispensaries to have some serious problems with that. I mean, I know they were coming after me for $1.8 million in back-owed sales taxes from that time. So,
well, we see clients from California that market with us in our publications here, but it's always the hemp side. They're targeting into Texas from the hemp side, and then I've got friends from California that have opened up businesses in the last 5-6 years into the hemp space here in Texas, that some of them got out of California just kind of right at the right time for them because the regulatory issues were just such a challenge for them. So some of them jumped and sold businesses in cannabis and then navigated into the hemp market here in the Lone Star State. So it's tough over there.
Jordan, do you guys have anything like any? Do you guys do any financial raises for people that just need to pay their taxes? Because there's a lot of people that need some money just to pay their taxes, bro.
No, not specifically for that, but we have looked at aggregators of retail stores, right? And I think there are a lot of single operators, or maybe have a couple dispensaries that would be willing to turn over the keys just to have someone else take over their tax bill. So I do think for folks who do have fresh capital coming into this space, there are a lot of distressed opportunities out there.
Fair enough. You have anything you want to throw in on this, Jess, before we move on? You're on mute, Jess. You're on mute.
Apologies.
There we go. There you go. Now we hear you, buddy.
It's sad. It's sad that California is killing its golden goose.
It is, right?
So many companies. I have hundreds of friends who have been put through this. I mean, people on this stage have been put through this, and it's really rough when you've gone through it for 20 years and they hitting you again and hitting you again and hitting you again. You're just trying to stay above water. It's terrifyingly sad.
Yeah, it's like Mike Tyson's Punch Out being Glass Jaw Joe versus Mike Tyson, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, here's the issue, right? We're not the fucking golden goose. And we've pushed through these legislation, we've pushed through these regulatory whatevers because we're supposed to be the fucking golden goose, and the salvation of all these failing fucking governments and this ridiculous overspending.
But
the
isn't
city
that...
of LA is, hold on, the city of LA is fucking bankrupt. Thank you, Karen Bass. And you know what?
Trash.
We have a higher cannabis tax in LA than anywhere else. You know why these funds don't fucking help? Do you know why we're not the golden Jews? Because we go to the fucking general fund, which is the fucking police and special interests.
Yep.
So this is not like we have to quit pushing through legislation based on the fact that our cannabis tax is going to save your fucking overspending ass, because it is not.
Well, and that's not what I mean by golden goose.
No. I know you don't clarify that.
What I mean by it is the fact that, you know, the Emerald Triangle has still today has the best brand for the best weed in the world. Period. People
I don't know about
around
that. I thought I did.
Hold on. People around the world when they think of the best weed in the world, they literally think of California. And if they have any knowledge at all, they think Humboldt, probably Humboldt first. I don't know about all that,
but that's cute.
Dude, trust me, if you go anywhere in the world, go to Europe and say, where's the best weed in America? And they'll say California. Yep. And if they know something, they'll say Humboldt. So that's just the way that it is. That's the way the branding has played out. And that is a huge golden goose opportunity for California to continue that attraction and bring people from around the world. Whether it doesn't matter where the best weed in the world actually ends up being, in LA or in California in the woods. The fight can go on. That's fine. They should own the fact that they have the best weed in the world and be bringing tourists from all over the world to come and try it. And they're missing that huge golden goose opportunity by regulating everything down and not allowing any kind of farmers market sales or any kind of farm tours. Like, everything is so hard that it just kills that opportunity completely. It's a much bigger economic opportunity than just selling the weed.
And shout out to the National Disgrace. He says, nah, SFV had better weed than Humboldt at one time, bro, in my opinion. The SFV, shout out to the San Fernando Valley. That's right. Get your weed from the valley. And
the best weed I've ever smoked personally came on the hill in the middle of nowhere.
It came from me.
Not,
it's
bro.
True.
Sorry.
It's all right, Jesse. You can be in denial all you want.
That was right up there, very close.
On that, we're going to go into a commercial. We're going to be right back. And we are back, you guys. We are going to roll into, that's right, Mr. Russell Dowden. He publishes the Texas Hemp Reporter magazine out there in the great red state of Texas and is covering Texas cannabis and hemp news. He reports on the hemp industry from technology, financials, banking trends, and culture, including business opportunities in the space in the great red state of Texas. That's right. Here to come up, it is none other than Mr. Russell Dowden.
Hello. Thanks for having me on the show this week, Jason. Appreciate it. And great show. I like what you're doing. Very similar. I'm do a weekly show here in Texas Hemp Show podcast, and a lot of fun doing this, and I'm happy to be here with you. So the scuttle last week, as you guys have seen, was the governor made an announcement to fully ban some of the hemp THC products. So our story is focused here on the Texas bill. Recent bill here would legalize recreational marijuana. The Texas Lieutenant Governor wants to ban THC products, and THC may soon be banned in Texas after Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick last week pushed for a full ban of psychoactive drugs found in cannabis or other products. The brief here is Texas Rep. Jessica Gonzalez filed a bill to legalize cannabis in the state of Texas, and the bill would allow adults 21 or older to use recreational marijuana. A 10% tax would be imposed on the sale of all cannabis and cannabis products. 21 or older to use recreational marijuana. A 10% tax.
You with us? You with us, Russ?
Yeah.
Okay,
I was getting feedback from myself there. Sorry about that.
No worries.
But no, just the continuing here, State Rep Jessica Gonzalez filed the House Bill 1208 for the upcoming legislative session before Patrick came out against the THC products, which was announced last week. The bill would allow, again, 21 or older to use or possess, transport up to 2.5 ounces of marijuana for personal use. Adults would also be allowed to keep up to 10 ounces of cannabis at their residence as long as it's stored in a secure location. Smoking and consuming cannabis while in the public place or in a car or public road would not be allowed. Packaging for cannabis products would be required to be in, of course, child resistance packaging that would clearly be labeled and not easily confused for candy. The bill also lays out plans for the production and sale of recreational marijuana. Under the plan, businesses looking to grow, transport, test, or sell cannabis would need to be licensed by the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. And again, that 10% tax would be imposed on the sale of all cannabis products. If passed, the bill would take effect September 1st, 2025. And the Texas legislative session begins here January 14th next month. We've seen movement here with recreational and illegal. Because marijuana is legal in Texas, but voters in some municipalities here in Texas have already supported decriminalization. We've seen that with Dallas, Lockhart, Bastrop, Austin, and others have made measures to legalize possession of 4 ounces or less of marijuana with arrest or citations. Denton, Austin, Elgin, Calif have all done this. And then Ken Paxton, the Texas Attorney General, has filed lawsuits in the past against many of these cities, saying that the measures conflict with state law. So medical cannabis is legal in Texas, though it is very limited. Texas's compassionate use program allows for certain physicians to prescribe low THC cannabis to Texans with an approval list of conditions. Some of those conditions include epilepsy, MS, autism, cancer, and PTSD. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick called for the so-called hemp loophole to be closed here in the next legislative session. So concerns here with what things moving and shaking as a heated 89th legislative session begins here in the Lone Star State, Jason.
Oh man, Russell, thank you so much for that. I mean, I just find it amusing that Texas wants to try to enact an adult use legislation when they only have like 3 stores in the entire state of Texas under their medical program, and probably the most restrictive medical program in the entire country. I mean, and then to top it off, we're looking for a story. So if some of you find a story on this related to Kim Rivers putting money behind Ken Paxton's hemp ban, please share it with us so we can bring it to you guys. But it's super interesting how this is going to try to play out, and like they're going to have a super restrictive adult use market, I would imagine, in Texas under this bill, and all they keep doing is just trying to brush this under the rug, and I don't think this is going to work, and I don't think this bill is even going to pass the legislature in the first place. I think it's just it's good to beat the drum and whatnot, but I don't think it stands a chance to pass the legislature in Texas.
Yeah, we're more concerned, I think, over the regulation of the hemp products here in Texas. It's a $10 billion industry here in Lone Star State. We want to regulate, not eliminate, is kind of the talk here, against for lobbyists going into this next session here in the Lone Star State. So, a lot of bills do get filed for marijuana. We do need to probably I support a better teacup program, but I think our teacup program, which is the compassionate use program, which is at currently 1%, that's so low and such a bad program that it forces folks to it forces veterans to get hemp products. It forces people with chronic pain to try a gummies, and so our hemp program does well and serves the community here in the Lone Star State, but that medical marijuana side needs to show some improvement, or we just need to regulate and tax maybe our hemp program, but we just need to regulate it and not eliminate it. And that's kind of what this roller coaster of the 89th session is here in Texas is going to going to be like.
Russell, don't you think too, though, that also this type of legislation, it also makes people become criminals, because a lot of them drive into neighboring states like New Mexico and Oklahoma and whatnot to procure their cannabis goods, and then that makes them instantly criminals because they're crossing a state line with a federally controlled substance.
Well, it's not just crossing state lines. I mean, it's going to drive the black market, and then you've got all of this fentanyl crisis, So one of the arguments we make to lawmakers is, look, let's tax and regulate this and keep the illicit products off of and make it. This is safer to regulate, and then not to mention the tax revenue that this can create, and the jobs that it employs and the good that it does for our fellow Texans. And that's what we report on here at the Texas Hemp Reporter. But we've gone 4 years here in Texas with our hemp program, and then some of these, we didn't get no real movement ever happened in the last session on any of the hemp stuff. There's too many issues with the border here in Texas. So lawmakers really looking to address some of the concerns they have on this, but we're all for regulation. The market here in Texas supports healthy regulation. We're all good for age gating our stores at 21 and up, having child-proof packaging. Where most of our operators are already doing these things here in the Lone Star State. So it's just getting this on paper and coming to an agreement with our lawmakers and how best to regulate our hemp program. And we'll see what happens with marijuana. That could always improve because it's a real joke of a program here in Texas.
And shout out to Brian Dombrowski with a big old super chat who says, "Get behind Texas hemp. Plenty of room for those California marijuana brands on the hemp side here, and a lot less legal 280E liability too." What do you think about that, Jordan?
Yeah, I think the 280E issue is something that has to get resolved quickly, right? I mean, I think that's why a lot of the folks on the THC side of the house are so excited about rescheduling, because what the Farm Bill's done is it's made these hemp-derived products, not susceptible to 280E, able to be shipped across state lines and delivered straight to your door. And so I think just leveling the playing field for the THC side of the industry will be really beneficial.
Fair enough. Jesse, Jenny, you have anything you want to share on this? No? Jesse,
no.
Look at that.
Nothing to add or contribute anybody hasn't already said.
Fair enough, you guys. Interesting. All right, well, on that, I guess I'm going to roll into our final story of the day. And it has been a hemp hooray type of Monday, and I have another hemp hooray story too, although it doesn't sound like it's that good, you guys, because hemp industry workers testify against a bill that would ban intoxicating hemp products, you guys. That's right. Workers in the hemp industry spoke out against a bill that would ban intoxicating hemp products in, that's right, Ohio, effectively putting them out of business. And these are known as Delta 8 THC products that are often sold at smoke shops and corner stores and maybe even some back alleyways. But nonetheless, those who spoke out against Senate Bill 326 during last week's Senate Government Committee meeting called for regulations and not a ban on sales, arguing that it would cause the black market to flourish. In a quote, "Strict bans will only support illicit sales of these products with no enforceable safety or age requirements, which does nothing to address the issues legislators have cited as the need for new hemp legislation," said Jonathan Miller, general counsel for the U.S. Hemp Roundtable, you guys. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine has been asking lawmakers to regulate or ban Delta 8 THC products, and State Senator Steve Huffman, Republican from Trip City, introduced SB 326 last month. 25 people submitted opponent testimony on SB 326 last week, and nearly 20 people submitted proponent testimony on the bill last month. Marijuana is legal in Ohio and is not considered an intoxicating hemp product, and the 2018 Farm Bill says hemp can be grown legally if it contains less than 0.3 THC by weight. And in a quote, Senate Bill 326 aims to make illegal an industry made up of thousands of small businesses, but in fact, it will simply strengthen the black market, said J.D. McCormick, president of the American Healthy Alternatives Association. Several Ohioans have turned to hemp as an alternative to opioid pain prescriptions, he said, and in a quote says, a 2023 economic impact report on the United States cannabinoid industry indicates that Ohio's hemp-derived cannabinoid market is responsible for, guess what, how much, you guys? $704 million, $782,000 in revenue, he said. It also estimates the hemp-derived product industry provides 8,157 jobs with $327,448,000 in wages for the employees of the industry and approximately $40,524,970 in annual sales tax receipts, he says. Mo Dayam owns 6 smoke shops across the state that sells hemp products and says SB 326 bill would jeopardize my business and my employees, he said. I assure you that the industry is in support of reasonable regulations, and we want the responsible businesses to continue to operate and ensure there are not bad actors and unsafe products in the market. The hemp industry supports banning sales to people under 21 years of age, testing products, labeling requirements, and restrictions, Dayam said. And in an additional quote, some products that have garnered media attention are packaged like known children's candy brands, he said. This should be prohibited, and the industry agrees they should be off the market. Doug Strawham owns 2 CBD stores and says Happy Harvest Delaware and Happy Harvest Marion, and he said this bill would destroy his business. In an additional quote, my family's financial stability and well-being, as well as the jobs of our employees, are all tied to this industry. He said about 80% of their sales come from Delta products, which they only sell to customers 21 and older. And in a quote, the median age of our customers is actually around 45 years old, Stram said. Jamie Courtney owns a CBD store in Belafonte where most of their customers are over 55 years of age, and says these are responsible adults seeking relief and wellness without the intoxicating effects of marijuana, she said. Courtney shared the story of a 90-year-old customer who says taking CBD gummies has helped her stop having seizures, and in a quote says, I think this ban would hurt people more than it would actually help, she said. Lawmakers are trying to get their bills passed before the current General Assembly comes to a close at the end of the month, and meaning any bills that don't pass will die and would have to be reintroduced in the next General Assembly, which starts in January. Well. Hopefully this bill crawls underneath a rock and dies, but I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this. Ohio trying to ban intoxicating hemp products too. Man, these people just need to get their acts together and quit wasting their legislative time on these bunk bills. But what do y'all have to say?
If you want to sell weed, get a license to sell weed.
Really?
Yeah, sorry. I know that your newfound interest is kind of contradictory to that.
That's
so I
fine.
understand.
I'm all good with it. I'm here for the disgruntledness.
You, along with a lot of other of us, Jason, have paid a lot of fucking money in licensing fees, a lot of money in fucking application fees, have paid a very high barrier to entry. And it wasn't so we could just get circumvented by people who are like, oh, look what I found in my mother liquor. Let me see if I can make a gummy with it.
Oh, I love when you say a mother liquor. It's one of my favorites. You guys are always talking about mother liquors.
For those of you at home who don't know, the mother liquor is where everything kind of ends up after you do a hemp or whatever kind of extraction process you're doing. But you can pull THC out of that mother
Is that
liquor.
what
You can pull other minors out of there that can be converted into something that will get you high.
Where everything ends up, huh, Jenny? In the mother liquor.
In the mother liquor.
I bet.
So,
Jesse.
I mean, like, listen, it was really cool, and we've done a lot of cool things. I think that hemp is an amazing opportunity for a lot of things, right? Hempcrete's fucking phenomenal. We did a lot of really cool shit with UCAN back in Colorado with hemp, right? So a lot of, tinctures, things like that were made, CBD, CBN, whatever, that came out of our mother liquor. We did a conversion process. There were a lot of really cool things that could happen, but I don't think that it's the answer to circumvent licensing. I do appreciate the option for patient access. Hello, patient access, not your 15-year-old go to the smoke shop and get high on Tuesday night, right? In places that do not have access. But as we're pushing that out, like, I don't think that there's, a really good reason why I should go to Bevmo and get myself some intoxicating hemp beverages. That should be something that is a little bit, that there's a reason. That's why we can't sell liquor without a liquor license, right? If we want to be regulated like alcohol, then be regulated like fucking alcohol. Go get the license and stop trying to jump through hoops to circumvent what these, everybody's fucking worked for. Because then why have we been rallying? Why have we been petitioning? Why have we been advocating for licensed cannabis if we're just gonna go around it? And so
I see you nodding your head there, Jordan. What do you have to say about this?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think in general it's good to have more access to folks. It's good to have cheaper product. Like, I support all of that, but I agree with Jenny Beth. Like, we just got to do it the right way. It's completely unfair to all these folks who have done it the right way, have put tens of millions into cultivation facilities, into lobbying efforts, into getting their products tested just to get circumvented by stuff that you have really no idea what you're smoking, right? I mean, you're talking about Delta 8 earlier, like, you just, a lot of that stuff.
We call it weed light
garbage
in California. We call it weed light out here, Delta 8. I mean,
we call it bullshit.
Jesse, go ahead, Russ. Go ahead, Russ.
No, I was just saying, I think I can see the passion that you guys have for it, especially from California or Colorado, and the markets that y'all have worked hard and paid heavy prices to get, the regulation going. And but like for states like Texas, it's the only thing we have, and that's why we try to fight for that.
Wait, you have 3 stores open? You have 3 stores in Texas, Russ?
3 stores with 1% THC, all 3 of them. So pretty bad. But I like I said before, I have a client or 2 in Ohio, and I know that they're on the beverage side, and so that's a big part of what that state decides to do with their hemp regulation affects a client of mine, and so we'll see what happens.
I mean, yeah, and as far as like Texas only having Delta 8 or THCA, that fucking COA might say THCA, but you and I both know with our beautiful God-given brains that weed probably came from California and will get you higher than dog shit. You know it.
That's why I say it's all THCA. That's my legal defense. I'm sticking to it. You know what I mean?
Well, to your point, I mean, a lot of the THCA flower that comes in, we can't grow it in Texas. It's all imported from California or Ohio,
or Oklahoma,
2 or 3, or Oklahoma as well. In fact, a lot of it comes from Oklahoma. But I have several clients that run advertising in our magazine that are from California, and they are excited about marketing their California THCA flower into the Texas market, and so. We see a lot of that.
What do you got to say about that, Jess? Go ahead.
I wish it was THC flower, Jason, but it's fucking not, because I know a lot of people that are selling it. And listen, access is access is access. Get your weed. I'm not mad. I would be on the show. I would have been in this industry for my entire fucking adult life if I didn't feel like patients should have access, right? So state to state, Colorado, California, cool. I'm everywhere. International, cool. But let's call it what it is, because we keep playing around with these cutesy little terms. I understand. I don't want anybody to get arrested either. But we know good and damn well that is just weed.
I'm surprised all those growers up there in Humboldt, Jesse, haven't came out with THCA lines. Humboldt's THCA finest. Just saying.
I would imagine that many of them are.
Those COAs, Jason, back.
I love a good COA, you know what I mean? And Leah Patrick in the X chat, she says 1% isn't enough, and I totally agree with that, Miss Leah Patrick. I'm totally with you on that. Man, shout out to everyone joining us, watching us in today. Do you have any final remarks you'd like to say on this, Jordan?
No, I mean, I think we covered the highlights there. It's just about having a level playing field, having a consistent tax regime so that everyone's playing by the same rules. Interesting perspectives, you guys. And make sure that y'all go and check out Parody Gummy at www.parodygummy.com and secure your bag today of Delta 9, America's new #1 D9 gummy line, where you can get some, you can want to be a bad hombre, pineapple flavored gummy, or if you need to go to sleep because you just had too much, you can get a Sleepy Joe's. And of course, if you feel like turning up, you can always turn to Trump and go with the Raspberry Riots, complete with the J6ers in photo, free and clear. That's right.
And nonetheless, thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry. Huge thank you to Catalyst for always helping us keep the lights on over here. And thank you to our correspondents for being absolutely amazing. Special thank you over to Jordan from Key Investments out there in the great state of Colorado. And also Russell shouted out for the Texas Hemp Reporter. He is actually filling in for Yarrow today and tomorrow while Yarrow is out. I mean, I think Russell's a little bit heavier than Yarrow, Jenny, so you're going to have a little hard time putting him back on the shelf and whatnot. But nonetheless, thank you all to Cannabis Sativa L for giving us a reason to do all this. And thank you to Cloud Media Partners, Adam out there in the virtual world controlling everything. And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. We are America's #1 daily cannabis news show.